Joe, however, wanted to talk about, after last night's performance, JuJu Smith-Schuster getting cut by the Patriots. Yes. Joe, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying there's a lot of disrespect out there being thrown at JuJu on Twitter and stuff right now. Look, it was a bad idea when JuJu signed with the Patriots. Like, nobody thought that was ever going to work out when he first signed with it. JuJu is not that kind of player to not have fun in the locker room, not be himself. JuJu has to dance. He has to do his thing. He has to talk shit. And you put him in the Patriots. Like, we looked at that when he first signed that deal, and we're like, this isn't going to work out. So I think a lot of people forget that JuJu is actually a pretty good player. I'm not saying he's the number one wide receiver on a team, but if you find an established team with a number one wide receiver already, or he can come in, be the number 2, number 3 wide receiver, I think JuJu can re-up his career and get it going again. He's not, like I said, he's not your number one guy, and I think that's what New England thought he could be, and that he's not. But JuJu Smith, come back, be happy again, start finding love, find the love of a game again because you lost it in New England, and be the JuJu that we all know, and I think he'll bounce right back.
This is Joe's segue into wanting him to be a Raider, because I know how Joe feels about the depth of the wide receiver core, and he actually would make a good for what they want to do, right? Because he's going to block. He's a big wide receiver, and he's going to play over the middle of the field. He'd play nicely for some easy targets. So I know Joe.
Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and then you have JuJu. No? Like, wow. The Raiders thought they brought in Michael Gallup to do this. Michael Gallup retired right before training camp, threw him in a loop. I wouldn't mind him being a third wide receiver on the team. You're not going to pay him a lot because the Patriots are already paying him.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with JuJu is just all of the freaking knee injuries. He's had some pretty catastrophic ones, and there's almost like a immediate decline if you go and look at the history and where he suffered those first major knee injuries, and then going into the last offseason, he dealt with it too. It just hasn't been the same since that, and we don't see it as much in the NFL anymore because of modern medicine and how good it's gotten. But these guys can get seriously damaged by these knee injuries for careers. And JuJu's kind of turned into like a really, like Joe's saying, a really good teammate, still a really good blocker. He'll catch a pass when he's wide open and he's schemed open. But he doesn't have that burst or that ability that we saw him break out with the Steelers anymore. It's just gone.
Well, the interesting thing is like these guys come back from these injuries and they are still elite level athletes. Yeah. But the margin, the small fraction that they lose in that injury is enough to make them look like an average football player compared to what they were prior to the injury. But still, they would smoke any regular person in anything, even though they can't quite capture what they were previously in prior to that injury. Goodness gracious, I can't speak.
Harrison, I like JuJu to Atlanta. That would be a good one. I would think that would be good. It's like I said, it would have to be a team that already has a good number one wide receiver or somebody like already there. I would say Indianapolis would be a great spot for him. Like they're not somewhere that there's not going to be high expectations for him, where he comes in as like a third guy, where they're letting the 1 and 2s go, and he comes in and just has to be a possession guy or something.
That's pretty much anywhere. That's pretty much anywhere. I mean, any team could use a guy like JuJu.
It's not Los Angeles because they don't have a number one guy.
Oh, you need to watch what you're talking about because week 1 is rapidly approaching, my friend.
I don't think JuJu would make the Chargers roster right now. Either.
What about JuJu to the Rams?
The Rams make sense because he's kind of like that's the style wide receiver they like. It doesn't need to be some crazy speedster down the field threat.
No,
and a coach like McVay would use him.
I just don't know what JuJu adds. Like maybe you'd be putting JuJu in there as a depth piece in case you lose Puka or you lose Cooper Kupp as your like underneath threat. Like I'm saying, like JuJu doesn't have it anymore, man. He's not gonna come in and contribute at a high level, at a high clip, at a high volume for an entire season. He's gonna just be a fill-in wide receiver, a rotation guy.
Hang on.
You are the same dude that sucked off OBJ for the last 3 years, saying that he's an elite wide receiver, and then now
when have I ever said that OBJ is currently an elite wide receiver?
Last year.
That's just a lie. You're just lying now.
When he signed with the Ravens, you were like, "Oh my god."
I was like, yeah, it's a great signing. He's probably going to have 600-700 yards. This is exactly what I said. I even said out loud, like multiple times, like I think Zay Flowers is better for fantasy football. I even like Rashad Bateman better for fantasy football. I'm taking Isaiah Likely more than I'm taking OBJ in fantasy football drafts. You're just making shit up now, Joe, just because I'm a fan of what OBJ did in his prime as I was also a teenager falling in love with football. I'm sorry. And also, I think he's overhated, so I defend him a little bit harder because you guys act like he made one catch and wasn't just this freaking maybe
you know what, Mike?
Peak.
Keep talking because I have the clip. I have the clip of you saying it right here.
As unstoppable as a Tyreek Hill, as unstoppable as anyone you could name in the history of football at his prime. I never ever have said that Odell has been elite anytime after 2020.
Yeah, we got Kyle in here telling Joe to be better, and Joe's over here dialing up his rebuttal. You guys, I think we're leaving out one important point about the way that rosters are built, and I think even there might be a little tweaks of rosters because of the new kickoff rule. But I think that when you are a wide receiver like JuJu and you're going to be on the roster, you have to also be able to and willing to commit on special teams. And JuJu's, I don't know that he's going to be a special teams player. Like, it's kind of, if you look at the roster, like look at a guy like Allen Robinson for the Steelers. Allen Robinson, is he going to make the Steelers roster this year? Like, whether they get Ayuk or not, because he's kind of in that spot where he might have to be playing special teams this year. And Allen Robinson isn't a special teams guy. I don't know that JuJu is going to be a special teams guy. Like, that's kind of where they're at. It's like, you're going to have to contribute. That's why Cordell Patterson was such a good player. Go ahead, Mike. I know you need to say something right now.
No, I see Renee in here with the Joe Milton thing, and I'm just like, this whole entire Joe Milton offseason storyline it rattles my brain. Because you'd think that Patriots fans would not want Joe Milton to make Drake May look bad. You want him to do well. You don't want Joe Milton to do bad, but the Jacoby Brissett out there at the offense, all of the starters for the offense for the Patriots didn't look super impressive against a preseason Panthers defense. Joe Milton gets in there and makes some exciting plays. Patriots win 17-0, and everyone's talking about Joe Milton on Twitter today. And I'm just like, man, we are setting up for some real drama. Probably not this year, but if Drake May isn't good and good quickly, Patriots fans are going to be calling for Joe Milton to get into the game, Brock Purdy style.
Yeah, I don't. We talked about it a little bit last week, right? That Drake May was getting a lot of heat on Twitter and stuff. But I don't know. I think just because Joe Milton has a strong arm doesn't make him the better quarterback. Come on. So
I stopped watching pretty early in that game. Like, Drake May gets one series, and then I watched Bailey Zappi, and then I pretty much just checked out and probably flipped back to the Olympics or whatever. Joe Milton is interesting. He is worth a project on the roster. But if you have invested this amount of money in Drake May, can we give him more than the preseason before we start calling for the 7th round quarterback? Right. Like, as a Patriots fan, aren't you hoping that Drake May is worth the 3rd overall pick? And it seems like Patriots fans are like, no, the only way we can succeed is the blueprint of turning a late round quarterback into the real deal. Like, if we're going to try and recapture the Brady magic.
Who's the most popular player on a football team, Tony?
The backup QB.
Backup QB.
Not on the Chargers. Not on the Chargers. And that's...
I love Easton Stick. Every time I don't want Easton Stick on my team, but I love watching Easton Stick play.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
People forget, he threw a touchdown to Jack Jones last year. He did really good.
Hey, every player on the 53-man roster is somebody's favorite person, even if it's only their family and their relatives.
True. Exactly.
So, Mike, you know what Patriot fans are good for right now?
What?
Patriot fans are good for telling Chiefs fans, like, hey, it doesn't last forever. Like, soak it in right now because there's going to be a downfall to the Chiefs, and you won't like the aftermath.
Well, I was gonna do a whole video for the Chiefs, and maybe even include this in my record predictions for the Chiefs. Basically, just talk about, like, before this day, the day they drafted Patrick Mahomes, and it's just like an abyss losing.
There's going to be a day where like Chiefs fans, they're gonna have to be like a meeting for Chiefs fans and Patriots fans to just show up and sit there and drink their coffee, eat their donuts, and talk about the good old days. Remember when we had a dynasty? It was so good.
You can sit right next to the Niners and the Cowboys fans.
The change really started though with Andy Reid and Alex Smith.
Like, yeah, Andy Reid was good for the Chiefs.
True.
Yeah, they were playing good football before Patrick Mahomes got there.
Hey, speaking about Alex Smith, have you guys seen him lately?
It looks the same.
Only in the pictures. It looks.
They showed it, and it was like 4 years later or whatever, and it was still nasty.
Can you believe that he played on that leg? Like he played after the injury. He played on that alien-looking thing.
It's still like one of those things that I remember sweating watching him play in the NFL, and I was like, oh, this thing's going to snap like a matchstick. This is going to be terrible. We were watching a game live when we used to still do like Warzone stuff. We'd watch the live games, and there's a part where Joe's like, Tony, look at the screen. I'm like, I can't look at the screen. What happened?
Because they played the Rams, right? And wasn't Aaron Donald like
Aaron Donald? And he's like, look at the screen. I'm like, I can't look, Joe. I can't look at the screen. What if he gets up and it's just like dangling sideways?
That was the most watched Washington game in years because people were watching to see if his leg would snap again. Like that was
a car accident. You can't look.
Tony was right. Every hit that he took in that game, everybody was like, "Oh, is he gonna get up? Is he gonna get up?" And he did. Kyle, the AA meetings for past dynasties, like we can make fun of it. I would just idea. I wish I had a seat at that table. like I make fun of it and we talk shit about it, but I wish my team would have a seat at that table.
Get some old Steelers fans in there and shit, like where you can barely understand because their accents are so thick. That would be
just so old.